This is Stuart Roach, founder of Oath Keepers and Oath Keepers, and I am talking to Kathleen Thomas, who is the mother of Brandon Raub, Marine veteran Brandon Raub from Richmond, Virginia, who has been detained. This last week was detained by the local police and not charged with a crime, but instead has been placed in a mental wing of the local hospital. And also joining us tonight is Oath Keepers National Eastern U.S. Vice President Rand Cardwell, who's a Marine Scout Sniper veteran and who has a current serving son in the Marine Corps and son-in-law. Rand, are you there? Yes, sir. And Kathleen, are you there?
I sure am, sir.
Well, thank you for coming on and talking to us tonight, and we do appreciate it. The story of your son's detainment is shocking. And what first jumped out at us was the fact that it was driven by the FBI. The FBI has stated publicly that it was initiated because they had gotten complaints at their local field office about your son's postings on his Facebook page. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's the way I understand it. Yep.
And then they went out to do an interview with your son, and they brought the local Chesterfield Police Department with them. And long story short is he was not charged with any crime, but instead the Chesterfield Police Department, in consultation with their mental health wing or workers, decided to bring him in for a mental health evaluation. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Now, you were first notified about this by the FBI, right?
That's correct. Yeah. Agent Sherry Granger called me.
What did she tell you?
She identified herself and said, "Want you to know that we stopped by your house to speak to your son regarding Facebook postings that they became aware about on the internet, and also she said there were several individuals that were concerned about him, that he might either hurt himself or someone else." And I said,
she also
I just questioned that. I just said, well, he's fine. I'm not sure why you needed to come and do this. And she proceeded to ask me some questions about his stability. When he came back from Afghanistan, things like that, I said, he's fine. My son is fine. And I said, the last time that I checked, we still had our First Amendment right. Is that correct? The freedom of speech. And she said, yes, ma'am, we still have that right. And I said, well, I don't see what the problem is here. She said, well, the Chesterfield County Police Department have taken Brandon. They have arrested him for resisting arrest and assaulting a police officer, and they're taking him to Chesterfield County Police.
Well, that's what she told you, but actually he was never charged with resisting arrest. Latest statement from Chesterfield Police Department itself stated that, I'm looking at their statement, it says that he has not been charged, and this is a mental health issue only, that there's no plans to charge him. Is that the latest word?
Yeah, that is the latest word, but I had no idea at that time what was going on. I mean, why was the FBI there and the Secret Service? But yes, they did not charge them. It was a Chesterfield County issue. It's a civil matter.
Right.
I'm
looking here,
later.
I'm reading now, the Chesterfield Police Colonel Thierry Dupuis issued a following statement Monday. And it says here, Chesterfield Police assisted federal authorities in their efforts to interview Brandon J. Raub on Thursday, August 16th. After speaking to Raub, officers believed him to be in need of further evaluation. So officers at the scene contacted Chesterfield Mental Health Crisis Intervention, and crisis workers recommended that police take Raub into custody and bring him in for evaluation. Chesterfield Police took Raub into custody for evaluation in accordance with Virginia statute Code Section 37.2-808, emergency custody. So he was placed in handcuffs after he resisted officers' attempts to take him into custody. He was evaluated by a Chesterfield mental health official who determined that he should be held under a temporary detention order and transported to John Randolph Medical Center for additional evaluation. So that's the official police statement. It says he was not arrested and he faces no criminal charges in Chesterfield. As this is not a criminal matter, Chesterfield Police have no further comment. Now, what's chilling about this is the use of the mental health system rather than the criminal system to detain your son. And what this reminds me of is what was done in the Soviet Union. In the Soviet Union, you had dissidents who were detained under mental health detention in mental health facilities. In the Soviet Union, they used this routinely to stifle and silence dissidents. It was called the Spashuska, or psychiatric prisons, where activists against the state could be held indefinitely, isolated from other prisoners and the rest of the world. So this is what we're concerned about, is that this is the beginning of the same kind of persecution here in the United States, and the use of the mental illness label to detain people rather than charging them with a crime. Do you share that concern?
Oh, absolutely. And ironically enough, that was one of the conversations that we had over the past year in the home here regarding that exact activity that they used to do. Brandon and I took a lot of time to peel the covers back on a lot of books and a lot of news out there and a lot of things that went down in history, and we actually talked about that. And we discussed how we thought we would be seeing that in increasing measure as the times got harder and harder out there and we become more of a police state, which is what we're seeing. So he is actually smack dab in the middle of exactly what you just said. I believe.
Now, you said earlier when we were talking to you that your son understood the risk he was taking by being outspoken, by being an outspoken veteran. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I don't know if risk is the right word. I don't think we ever said risk, but you know, I may have said that to you inadvertently. We just knew that when you take a stand that isn't popular, and it doesn't, you know, appear to be popular in today's age to challenge the Constitution, that you're going to probably face persecution. And people aren't going to understand you. I think that they even will label you. But it was never about whether we'd be understood or not for Brandon or for myself or our family. It's about, you know, question everything. And just make sure that you step back and you take a look at the legislation, the bills, the you know, government policies that are trying to weed their way through our government system and become law, and challenge it and look at it and compare it to the United States Constitution. And so we always just challenge people to do that. We never said you had to. We just encouraged them to question. And so that's what he's been doing.
And you formed the Richmond Liberty Movement, and you held a rally back last November. And you've also been very active and outspoken in writing of legislators about particular bills in front of Congress, like SOPA and the NDAA. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the HR bill that Mr. Obama, President Obama, has put out, the health care bill, is actually very, very, very long, and we tore it apart and looked through it. You know, it's just the kind of stuff we do as a family. We take a look at what's going on out there very closely, and we question it. And Brandon is very passionate about it. You know, we're all very passionate, but he's very outspoken.
And you said earlier when we were talking to you that he had a sense that something was coming, that he'd be potentially persecuted.
Well, you know, when we say we had a sense, and I don't expect everyone to understand this, but we're a praying family. And we're not religious, but we're in a relationship with Christ. There's a big difference. We actually walked the floors of this house that I'm standing in right now and prayed together often. When I say often, I mean often, about our country. And we began to, you know, just pray more increasingly. And Brandon would share, you know, he just felt like the Father was preparing him for things. You know, for all of us, the whole country, we just kind of, I don't know how else to say it, we felt it in the air. If you're sensitive at all, I think, to what's going on, you know that we're seeing some changes in our country, and we were just very sensitive to it.
Right, I understand. Now, after your son was detained and held for mental evaluation, you have retained counsel with the Rutherford Institute. Is that correct? They're helping you.
The Rutherford Institute actually stepped up and reached out to us and said, we want to help. Here's who we are. And it was really incredible for them to step up and help us the way that they have. And we are using 2 lawyers that they've referred us to here in the Virginia area, local area. And it's Trutman Sanders that's representing us.
And I want to let our Oath Keeper listeners know that what the Rutherford Institute, they're basically like a conservative ACLU. Their website is rutherford.org, rutherford.org. And to donate to legal defense for this case, it's going to require retaining experts. They're going to have to hire psychiatric experts, et cetera, to fight this. And so I would encourage you, if you can, to go there to rutherford.org and click on their donate button. And they have instructed us to get in contact today with John Whitehead, the lead attorney for Rutherford Institute, and they've told us that they would welcome our assistance any way we possibly can. What we're going to do is, if they need an amicus brief, myself and our general counsel we will volunteer to write an amicus brief if they need it. But the primary legal defense right now is being handled by them. And what we're going to do as an organization is Oath Keepers will put boots on the ground, do protests. And in our protest, we're going to be demanding that he be released, either charged or released. But the use of the mental health system to detain somebody for their political speech that does not rise to the level of a criminal act or conspiracy to create an act, that's absolutely illegitimate. I went back and I've scoured his Facebook page and looked at everything he wrote. Nothing there would rise to the level of something he could have been charged for. No threats to people, no particular incitement to violence, nothing that would be actionable under the law. And so what he is being held for is protected speech. And what they're doing, rather than charging him, because if they could have charged him, you can bet they would have. You can bet your bottom dollar that if the FBI could have charged him, they would have. But they had nothing to charge him on, so instead they're using this Virginia health emergency detainment statute for mental health. And your son, Kathleen, your son is sound as anybody else. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. Perhaps more sound than most. He's a very logical, clear, clean mind. He's very intelligent, did very well in school as a child. Was an Eagle Scout. Always excelled whatever position he was in. He became a sergeant in the Marine Corps. There are men who can testify to how he led under extreme circumstances of pressure. Just hung up with some Marines. They called me and said, I served side by side with Brandon. I watched him in action, and he always handled himself. He was always in control. He was never out of control. He just presented himself very well as a leader among his men. He's very, very loved. He always got good grades in college. He's never had any background of anything like this, ever recorded, documented, or seen by any members of our family. He is very, very sound, very, very sound.
So, and Mr. Whitehead informed us that there's no history of psychiatric care in Brandon's past whatsoever. And so as I said before, what they're really doing is they're basing his detention entirely on his political speech, protected free speech, on his Facebook page, which does not rise to the level they could have charged him with for a crime. So instead, they're using the mental health system, and I would say that they're using it very illegitimately. And this is the beginning of the politicization of the mental health system in America, used as a weapon against dissidents. And we're following the same path that Soviet Russia went down, Nazi Germany, other dictatorships in history. And this is very frightening. And so I would encourage everyone listening to this to understand that the camel's nose is coming under the tent, and we have to stomp on it hard. You cannot let this precedent be set for the use of psychiatric commitment to be used against a veteran for his free speech. This is something that just cannot be tolerated. This is another intolerable act on the way towards the same road that our founding fathers went down that compelled them to fight a revolution. That's kind of the same track we're on. And so what we're going to do as an organization with Oath Keepers is much the same thing we did in New Hampshire, where you had the Irish baby, Jonathan Irish, and his wife. They had their newborn baby taken from them, in part because of the father's association with Oath Keepers. And in that situation, CPS took their baby, and in the affidavit to the judge, among other items, listed the father's association with Oath Keepers as a reason to take her child. And that was a very dangerous potential precedent. It was the politicization of CPS. And we reacted very strongly to that. He had strong, good local counsel that came in, and we put together a pretty good, solid rally with a lot of folks in attendance and helped put political pressure on it. And so we'll do the same thing here for Kathleen's son, for Brandon. We're going to put as much public pressure pressure as possible in the court of public opinion, while he's also got a really good legal team from with Mr. John Whitehead from the Rutherford Institute. Now, Kathleen, have you been in contact with other veterans organizations, and you've gotten response from around the country on this?
Yes, I mean, a lot of people have reached out to us. We have a Facebook page. I'm sure you were probably going to mention this. It's called Support Brandon Raub. That's R-A-U-B. You can go there, and that's where we're really trying to keep the latest information. We've got 5 administrators in there managing this page. So if you want to know what's going on, just go in there and add yourself as a friend. We've got over 6,000 people in there right now, and it's growing. That is the best way to find out the most current information. And the Rutherford.org always puts out press releases, and that is an also great place to go for immediate news.
And this podcast we're doing right now will be included in our email that we're sending out to our members and our article on Oath Keepers. And so I'll include a link. There'll be a link right there, folks, in the article this is attached to, that you can go right straight to that Facebook page. And I would encourage you to sign up as a friend. The more people that step up and speak out now, and the more boots on the ground we get in front of where he's being detained, the better. And your son just tonight was moved from the civilian hospital to a VA hospital. Is that correct?
That is correct. Salem, Virginia is 4 hours west of Richmond.
So he's been moved to the VA hospital in Salem, Virginia.
Correct.
And now your attorneys from the Rutherford Institute are fighting that move, or attempting to fight it.
Right, that's correct.
And the concern is, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. They've already got that paperwork in motion to try to. What happened was, just a side note, is we met for the first time. Brandon was able to meet with his lawyers today, and I went up to the hospital and met them, and we sat with Brandon. And it really was the first time that all of the pieces were put together, and I was able to hear completely from the beginning all the way through the end through my son's mouth. And I can tell you, he was just perplexed. He just doesn't understand. He's like, I don't understand why I'm here. It doesn't make sense to me, because he knows the law and he knows his Constitution. And so we were sitting there, and the attendant came in, one of the directors, I believe, and I apologize if I got that wrong, but someone with authority came in and said, just want to let you know they're going to be moving Brandon. This is about, I believe, 3:30. We're going to be moving Brandon to Salem, Virginia, where he originally was supposed to go when the judge gave the hearing and deemed that he needed continued evaluation.
That hearing was yesterday, correct?
Yeah. He was trying to, yes, sir. He was trying to send him to Salem, Virginia, but they did not have a bed for him, we were told. So he ended up staying at the John Randolph Medical Facility in Hopewell, Virginia. So when we were up there today, that was quite a surprise, and our lawyers handled themselves very professionally. And they have a right to see their clients. They have a right to interview their client, and so this obviously is going to cause issues for them because they're in this area as well. And it's just interesting to me. I don't want to allude to anything here, but it's making things very, very difficult for us. And I have to believe that that's not an accident. So.
But now he's being moved. This is what's interesting. Also, he's being moved from the state system, which is where he was placed under this Virginia statute. But now they're taking him to the VA hospital. So now he'll be in the hands of the federal government. He's going to be in the federal system. So it's interesting that this is a situation where the FBI is saying, oh, we don't have any part in this. This is a state issue about mental health, and yet, where are they taking him? They're taking him to a federal institution, taking him to the VA hospital. And our concern is that he will be drugged up there, and, it could be one of those situations where he's drugged up and made incoherent, and then they bring a psych in, a shrink, to interview him, and then they use those statements to justify. And that's what he's concerned about, right? He's concerned about, he knows he's being watched and being monitored. And so, and you said earlier that he's a good-to-go Marine, understands he's in a situation where he's watched at all times, and he knows they're looking for anything to use for justification for what they are doing to him. He's disciplined, but please pray for his patience and his stalwart faith. But here's the thing. If he's all drugged up and then they interview him, that could be, a bootstrapping way of justifying what they're doing to him.
That's correct, and Brandon asked that question specifically to the lawyer today. He said, can I refuse the drugs? I mean, he wasn't even aware if because we've never been in this situation. We've never had anyone in our family in this situation. So it didn't make any, this didn't make sense, and we had a lot of questions, and he asked a direct question to the lawyer, can I refuse drugs? And he said, absolutely, you don't need them. You can refuse them. So that's the attitude that we're going in there with is he's going to refuse anything because he doesn't need them. I mean, he doesn't want them at all.
Yeah, people have a right to refuse treatment, but I imagine the argument's going to be from the other side as well. He doesn't have the capacity to give consent or to deny treatment. So we're just going to treat him like like he's a total crazy person, and we're just going to do it to him anyway. I mean, be ready for that. That's what I would anticipate that they'll try to do, is drug him up anyway against his will.
Yeah.
So
and I think probably any deviation from, just acting completely normal, any deviation I'm sure they're looking for. So here's what I just want to get this out, and I'm asking, please pray for his posture, that under the stress of what's happening. Now, he's a Marine. We know he can handle this. He's got a lot of training, and he's also very intelligent, but we also just want to pray for that for him, that he would just be able to just walk soundly without under the pressures that are coming against him, and that he wouldn't give them any reason or cause to administer any drugs.
And that's the problem, and my concern is they'll just go ahead and do it anyway, and then once he's all drugged up, then they'll bring a psych in. So these are the things to watch for, and don't be surprised, folks, if that's what happens to this young Marine. Rand, you're a Marine veteran. You've got a current serving son and also a son-in-law in the Marine Corps. What's your perspective on this, on the treatment of this Marine veteran?
It's appalling. I think that we definitely need to make some type of stand on this. We cannot allow this to go as it stands. We're going to have to make as loud of the voice as we can. The thing on this, I believe, and most of anybody that's going to be listening to this is going to understand it. If they can do this to Brandon, they can do this to anybody. If you go and review his Facebook page, the things he wrote on there, I saw hundreds of times on other people's pages. Statements I've made in the past are similar. There's statements I've heard from you, Stuart, and from numerous people involved in what's going on right now. And we're just going to have to take a stand on this to just make sure that it don't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the camel's nose is coming into the tent. We need to stomp on it hard. Now, so what we need to see across this country is every organization out there of veterans, whether they're current serving military as well, we need to rally to this young man's cause and stand outside and make it very clear to them that they need to either charge him or release him. They cannot use the mental health system as a weapon against dissidents. And so I really hope that if anybody out there has contacts with active duty Marines at Camp Lejeune or anywhere else in the country that want to get on it, they should be out there every weekend making it very clear that they're going to stand behind their brother Marine. We need to do this, people. Now, Kathleen, you said you had a statement that your son wrote that you wanted to read. This is something he wrote while he was still in service and deployed to Afghanistan. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Go ahead and read what you want to say.
Okay.
Now, Brandon wrote this. What was the title?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just share a little background on this. I first saw this after he came back from Afghanistan. He showed it to me, and he actually wrote this. Let me get the date here for you. Bear with me one moment. Right before he was coming back from Afghanistan, and that was his last tour. It was November 11, 2011 at 10 o'clock in the morning. This is posted on his wall documents. It's inside his documents. He puts things in there. This is something he wrote. I ask you just to bear with me. It's a little lengthy, but what I wanted to do this evening when I was asked to share, and first of all, thank you so much, Oath Keepers. I truly honor the work you're doing. I follow you. You men make my heart proud. You men and women make my heart proud in the way that you stand up for just freedom and the rights of Americans truly inspires me, and I have mentioned your name on my lips often, and you're prayed for. So thank you for the fight. This is called The Truth.
Appreciate that.
America has lost itself. We have lost who we truly are. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is the land of Thomas Jefferson, This is the land of Benjamin Franklin. This is the land of Frederick Douglass. This is the land of Smedley Butler. This is the land of John F. Kennedy. This is the land of Martin Luther King. This is the land where the cowboy wins. This is the land where you can start from the bottom and get to the top. This is the land where, regardless of your race and ethnicity, you can succeed and build a better life for you and your family. This is the land where every race coexists peacefully. This is the land where justice wins. This is the land where liberty dwells. This is the land where freedom reigns. This is the land where we help the poor and people help each other. This is the land where people beat racism. The Federal Reserve is wrong. They have designed a system based off of greed and fear. They designed a system to crush the middle class between taxes and inflation. This is wrong, and it is unjust. It is wrong. We have allowed ourselves to be deceived and seduced by the powers of the printing presses. It is not a good system. It discourages savings, the foundation for all stable economic activity. The Federal Reserve is artificially manipulating interest rates and creating phony economic data. This thing has deceived our entire nation. They created it in 1913. They also created the income tax in 1913. They encouraged the growth of debt so they can tax you on it. There is interest on the debt. Your government is in bed with these people. They want to enslave you to the government so that they can control every aspect of your lives. It is an empire based on lies, and they operate out of greed and fear. But there is a better way, and it's called freedom. Freedom is called a lot of things, but there is one true meaning. It means very simply that you have the right to do whatever you want as long as you are not infringing on the freedoms of other people. I firmly believe that God set America apart from the other nations of the world. He saved a place where people could come to escape bad systems of government. This system we have created works. It really works. There is evil going on all around the world. The United States was meant to lead the charge against injustice, but through our example, not our force. People do not respond to having liberty and freedom forced on them. Men and women follow courage. They follow leadership and courage. Our example has paved the way for people all around the world to change their forms of government. Force is not the way, because liberty is a powerful concept. The idea that men can govern themselves is the basis for every just form of government. And we can govern ourselves. We do not need to be governed by men who want to install a one-world banking system. These men have machine hearts, machine and unnatural hearts. They have blocked out the possibility of a better world. They fear human progress. They have monopolies on everything. This life can be free and beautiful. There are enough resources on this earth to support the world's population. There are enough resources on this earth to feed everyone. There's enough land for everyone to own their own land and farm and produce their own energy. These people have been hiding technology. There are ways to create power easily. There's technology that can provide free, cheap power for everyone. There are farming techniques that can feed the entire world. They are controlling your media. They have dumbed you down through your school systems. They have systematically dismantled the Constitution. It is in rags. The Bill of Rights is being systematically dismantled. Men have spilled their blood for those rights. Your sons and daughters, your brothers and sisters, and America's best young men and women are losing their limbs. They are losing their lives. They are losing their hearts. They do not know why they are fighting. They are killing, and they do not even know why. They have done some extraordinary acts. Their deeds go before them. But these wars are lies. They are lies. They deceived our nation with terrorism. They have gotten us to hand over our rights. Our rights. Men died for those rights. September 11th was an inside job. They blew up a third building in broad daylight, Building 7. Your leaders betrayed you. You elected an atrocity they are beholden to special interests. They were brainwashed to the Council on Foreign Relations. Your leaders are planning to merge the United States into a one-world banking system. They want to put computer chips in you. These men have evil hearts. They have tricked you into supporting corporate fascism. We gave them the keys to our country. We were not vigilant with our republic. But there is hope. We must take our republic back.
And that is what he posted in his notes on his Facebook page, and it's called The Truth, right?
That is correct.
So, I mean, this is like Rand said earlier, this is not much different than what thousands or even millions of Americans are saying on their Facebook page. And I went and looked at his wall on Facebook going back a couple of months, and there are, the worst things he says on his Facebook page is, the revolution is here and I will lead it. The revolution will come for me, and men will be at my door soon to pick me up to lead it. I'm going to smile. And I talked to Mr. Whitehead, and he said that Brandon and his brother were going back and forth. It's kind of like a little game on Facebook, leaving comments. Because one of the comments he did was a lyric from a song, and it sharpened up my axe from here to sever heads. That's actually a lyric from a song by a group, right?
That's correct.
And so these are the statements on his Facebook page that apparently either got someone to call the FBI, or the FBI was already monitoring through Facebook, which is probably more likely. But the point I want to make to the audience is look, anything he said on his even that statement there, sharpen up my axe and here to sever heads, even if that were not a lyric from a song, that's still not something you can arrest somebody for. There's a line of protected speech and then unprotected speech, and the line is, this has been established in multiple Supreme Court cases. The line is that if you're calling for violence or articulating an intent to commit violence against a particular person, place, or thing in the immediate future, that is something they could prosecute you for. But if you're just making a general statement that we need a revolution, or something like you just said there, I'm here to sharpen my axe, I'm sharpening up my axe, I'm here to sever heads, that's not particular enough to charge somebody with. So whether someone thinks that's indicative of a dangerous person who might do something or not, that's not the point. It's protected speech until it's something that's close in time and particular enough to be construed as a threat. And as I said before, if they could have arrested him and charged him with threatening somebody, they would have, but they didn't. And so what this really boils down to is pre-crime, like out of Minority Report, the movie,
Yeah.
or preventive detention. This is thought crime and pre-crime and preventive detention. And Mr. Whitehead mentioned that at the hearing in front of the magistrate yesterday there in Virginia, that they quoted the psychiatrist. I guess it's some psychiatrist report the state has. They have not yet given to your attorneys, but the state quoted the psychiatrist as saying that his statements on Facebook were potentially dangerous. Is that right?
Yes.
And so they're talking about these statements that I'm just now quoting. So
correct.
Once again, this is the use of the mental health system, not because they think he's actually insane, but because they think he's potentially dangerous. And in fact, Mr. Whitehead mentioned that somewhere the FBI had stated, no, it wasn't Mr. Whitehead, it was a news article that quotes the FBI stating that in light of recent shootings, they were concerned. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But yet, once again, this is not something they can charge him with. And so they're illegitimately using the mental health system to do pre-crime detention, preventive detention. And this is something that we need to guard against and stand against, because what this will do is open the door to free speech being used as a reason to detain you for mental illness. And what that will do is chill free speech, because people will be afraid. And in fact, Rand, you found a website already, a party website discussing this, where folks have already begun to self-censor. Is that right?
That's correct. Patriot Action Network had put up a post concerning Brandon being taken into custody. And the comments underneath it, there was several posters that made comments along the lines, well, I'm going to have to watch what I say. So it's already having that effect on some people.
Yeah, so folks out there, I know there are some folks who are like, oh, 9/11 truthers are all nuts. That's not the point. A person can be a 9/11 truther, whether you think they're nuts or not, that's not grounds to put them in a mental hospital. And if you won't defend his speech, you need to defend the speech of the 9/11 truther, whether you agree with him or not. because if you allow this to happen, it won't just stop with him. It'll go out from there, and no one's speech will be safe, and no one will be safe who speaks out and is a dissident. They could come in, like Brand said earlier, they could do the same thing to me, to him, based upon past statements we've made, which every now and again you get kind of hot on the collar, or you say that, hey, we're about ready to, have a revolution. We're on that short track. I've said that multiple times. And so they could say, well, we think his statements are dangerous, and we think he might go do something someday. Just imagine what Southern Poverty Law Center would love to see happen across this country. And one point I want to make to the listeners is that Southern Poverty Law Center, as you know, has been making its mission, its primary mission, is to persecute the conservative libertarian right. And lately, in particular, they've been focusing on veterans, returning veterans, and Oath Keepers and other organizations like us. And Southern Poverty Law Center, the CEO for Southern Poverty Law Center now sits on the DHS working panel for countering violent extremism. And so they are essentially part of DHS. They are helping to write the training manuals. And in the published recommendations from that working panel to Homeland Security Secretary Napolitano, among the recommendations were that Homeland Security should use every level of government down to local government and non-government organizations, and that they should use local child protective services and local mental health services to combat violent extremism, which they define very broadly as almost anybody who dares to criticize the Obama administration. And so basically, this is right out of their playbook. They intend, and they've said before in this report, and recommended to the Homeland Security Secretary that she use local health services to counter violent extremism. And so now we see it being done. This is the first test case. They are using local health services and mental health detention to counter what they consider to be violent extremist rhetoric. So here's where we are. They're crossing the Rubicon when it comes to this kind of thing. And this is basically a civil detention counterpart to the NDAA. Under the NDAA, they can circumvent the Bill of Rights by just calling you an enemy combatant under the laws of war. Well, this is just one more way of doing it. Rather than charging you with a crime, they'll just call you insane. And both of them, whether they do it through the military law or whether they do it through civil commitment, tracks with what was done in Nazi Germany, what was done in Stalinist Russia. And so we need to take a hard stand against this, because if we let this happen to this one veteran, it's going to keep on going, and we will be in the new Soviet Union. So I really can't state it any stronger than that, is that this is where we have to stand right now. We cannot let this be done to this Marine. They must release him, and we need to get out there with as many boots on the ground as we possibly can and demand his release. Kathleen, is there anything else you'd like the Oath Keeper audience to know about your son or about his family?
Just that he's my eldest, so he's kind of my mama's boy. He's always been a wonderful son to me, and loves his family deeply, loves his country, and just wants freedom to reign. So, I'm confident this will end up the way that we hope it will, and I'm just trusting the Lord in the midst of all that. We're not fearful. We're not wringing our hands. We are trusting, and the Father knows, I think, a lot of what this kind of pressure would create on a family, and I think He prepared us for this, and we're handling it with His posture and grace, and we're going to stay resolute, and we're going to stay clear-minded, and we're going to present ourselves the way that we would want a true American to present itself in a situation like this, and we're going to handle it the way that we're supposed to. But we appreciate your prayers, and we truly love all of you that have even posted one comment or reached out or private messaged us. There's a team of us that all the children are involved in this, working on this together as a family, and it's pretty cool. So I just thank you for the opportunity to come on and share, the real details and really exactly how it went down. You did a phenomenal job this evening, just really expressing the way it went down, and I thank you for that. There's a lot of integrity in your group and your organization. That means a lot to us, and I just say thank you.
Well, thank you, ma'am, and we just commend you for your your composure under this circumstance. And I know it's rough on a mom. You've had your son in a combat zone, what, twice? How many tours? How many tours did he do over there?
He did two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was a combat engineer, and I don't know if you all know what those guys do, but they find the bombs. They try to stop things from blowing up. So it's a very dangerous job.
Well, if anybody's seen Hurt Locker, that's pretty much what he did, right?
Yeah, well, no, not quite to that extent, I don't think, but they definitely searched for IUDs underneath the ground, because they're all over the place over there. So he saw a lot of things that, never just should have taken place because of these wars. Very tragic. So.
Well, like I said, we commend your composure, and we will do all we can to assist. And like we told Mr. Whitehead earlier from the Rutherford Institute, whatever Oath Keepers can do, we're going to coordinate with them and coordinate with you, and we'll just make sure we do everything possibly can to help your son. And I think the best thing we can do is, in the court of public opinion, bring pressure and putting pressure on state officials, putting pressure on federal officials, putting pressure in the media. And the more people that stand up and voice their opposition to this, and the more boots on the ground, the better. So, folks, you got to get on this. This is a critical focus of effort. We got to jump on this and stomp it out so that it's not done to anybody else. Rand, you got any closing comments you want to make?
Ma'am, just to understand, there's a lot of members of our organizations, former Marines, and we stand by your son as a brother.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
So we're going to sign off now. We're going to be sending out frequent updates. I would encourage everyone. There are already ongoing protests, and you can bet that when he's moved, now he's been moved to the VA hospital, those will continue. And so nothing is keeping you from just heading on down there and joining in. Kathleen, are you in contact with the local groups that are stating protests right now?
There's a Tri-Cities Liberty Movement and the Richmond Liberty Movement. It's the only two groups that I know in Richmond that have reached out to us. Now, there may be others, so I apologize if I missed it. We have several other close young women in the family. They're not immediate family, but they're like family. Katie Wood and Rebecca Yoakum, and then my son, Brandon Raub, who are reaching out. And they're younger. They're in their 20s, around Brandon's age, kind of give or take a few years. And so there's a lot of networking going on with them. But the only two that I'm aware of are those two.
Okay, well, good to go. We'll just add our numbers to them, and I'll coordinate with you on the details for that. I'll post them on our site. Do you know the address for the VA hospital where he's being held right now?
Not yet. Actually, that was posted online in the support page. But if you Google the only hospital out there, Salem, Virginia, hospital, you'll be able to find it. Just look.
Oh, here it is. I've got it. Salem, Virginia Medical Center, 1970. Roanoke Boulevard, Salem, Virginia, and we'll post that on oathkeepers.org as well. Well, we're gonna encourage our membership to go down there, and boots on the ground, and other organizations as well. And the more the merrier. And I will be there myself at some point. I got to go to the GOP convention in Tampa this week, but once I'm done with that, I might just head straight up there. So you'll be seeing some oath keepers out there, and even more important than that, you can expect to see a whole bunch of Marines.
Well, thank you. Thank you very, very much. It really touches me. Let me know when you're going down there. I certainly will do my best to get there, my husband and I, and bring the family down. We certainly want to meet you. So. You
got it. We'll coordinate with you. No problem at all. All right, folks out there, you've heard what's going on. This is the straight scoop. We talked to his legal counsel, and I am convinced that this is an unjust abuse of the system and the use of the mental health system as a way to detain somebody without charges, a direct violation of our constitutional rights and the Bill of Rights. And this is something that we have to take a stand on, and so we will. Oath Keepers will be involved as much as possible, and we'll be there, boots on the ground, just like in New Hampshire. So here we go, folks. Time to saddle up and ride. Let's go. God bless America, and we restore the Republic. Oath Keepers out.